Hi, Jules. Nice to meet you. How you doing?
Great, thanks, Nicola. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I hope you're having a good start to a Friday.
Yeah, brilliant start to a Friday. Yeah, happy Friday. Right, okay, that's great. Let's just get started then. So, first of all, could you just tell us a little bit about what you do and how long you've been doing it?
Sure. So I am the CEO and founder of a social enterprise called Ultra Education, and we teach entrepreneurship to kids and young people from 7 to 18 years old. And this will be our seventh year.
Brilliant. Congratulations. So
Thanks.
you had to navigate through the lovely pandemic that we had in the last couple of years. So tell me, how did that go? What were the challenges you faced there?
So I remember the minute the pandemic hit, the thing that was foremost in my mind was adding as much value as we could to the parents, kids, and schools that we worked with.
Yeah,
So we put on about 40 free sessions over Zoom.
yeah,
We put together a whole bunch of resources, lockdown resources that we distributed, via our newsletters and social media networks, because we just wanted to really double down on our mission, which is essentially just to be of service and to kind of help using educational resources. We knew that parents were going to have a tough time teaching
yeah,
kids at home. We knew
yeah,
that teachers needed support in offering students stuff which was outside of core curriculum just to keep them interested in learning.
yeah.
And we were just fortunate that we could play a part in that.
Brilliant. So those sessions that you offered, what did they look like?
Yeah, so we define an entrepreneur to a 10-year-old as someone who does what they love and they make money from it. So it stems from passion. So we would open up, if we had a Zoom call which had maybe 20 or 30 kids on there, we would just ask them, what they're passionate about, what do they love doing, what makes them smile. And then we would show them examples. So let's say they loved pets or they loved YouTube or they loved, writing stories. We
Hmm.
would then show them examples of other kids just like them who have created businesses doing that. And, they've made a little bit of extra pocket money so they can buy those trainers or that, that PlayStation game that they wanted without having to bug their parents. And so that's how we would start the conversation. And we would spend the rest of the time just unpacking how they can come up with a version of that business, that product or service idea that they could then sell and make some extra money.
Fantastic. So have you got any little stories you can tell us about some young entrepreneurs that you've worked with?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, during the pandemic, actually, we had an 8-year-old called Marcus,
Yeah,
and he was in the Northwest London area. He came on to our 8-week program, and he was, really shy to start with. Every time he came on camera and he had to answer a question or do a task, you could see him kind of turn away from the camera and try and look for support from mum and so on. And then at the end of that program, when he had to do the presentation,
yeah,
he didn't turn away once. He answered
yeah.
all the questions and he was,
Wow.
super confident,
Yeah,
and he just owned that journey and that passion that he had himself. And he loved baking. He came, his parents come from a small Caribbean island, so he had a business called MJ's Treats, which was
yeah.
like Caribbean, bakes and sweets. And he presented that business, and he was really, really confident. And it was like a really proud moment taking a child who, is pretty introvert to a point where they're happy to present, even on Zoom, to another 30 individuals on the screen. That's
Yeah.
that's a pretty impressive journey. And so a year later, we were then approached by Virgin Media, who wanted to feature us as a business that was connecting communities.
Yeah.
And they wanted a couple of kids who we were working with. And so we brought Marcus on. And I remember in our workspace in South Kilburn, Marcus had a director. So he was sitting on a stool, and in front of him, he had a cameraman, a lighting guy, a sound guy, a director, and a producer, all staring at him, right?
Yeah.
And you could see Mum off to the side thinking, this is a bit overwhelming. And Marcus just dealt with it like a pro, right? So
Wow.
he was, 9 by this
Yeah.
time. he just dealt with it like a pro, and everyone was looking at him like, wow, you know, you didn't crumble under that. But again, it just showed his growth as a young kind of entrepreneur. And then a year later, which was last year, West London Business Awards, they had their first category for young entrepreneur, and Marcus won Young Entrepreneur of the Year.
Amazing.
It was this time last year.
Wow.
So, you know, to go from that journey of being this kind of shy, introverted kid to, you know, winning an award, West London Entrepreneur of the Year award, it was quite something. And now he's got his little sister doing a business. You know, Marcus is now 11. His little sister is about 8, 9, and she interviews business people. That's what she does.
Wow.
On her Instagram, right? And so it's just, you know, I could give you loads of examples, but that's a prime example of, you know, the kind of outcome that we would wish for a young person. It's just about them going on a journey, right? And, you know,
and what a journey.
being in one place.
A lot of adults wouldn't be able to go, you know, to do that and sit in front of the camera like that. What a start for him as well. Like, that's amazing.
I know, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's really great work. Love it. So, thinking about your time in business, what have you learned about yourself as you've been going through your career and starting businesses?
What I've learned about myself personally is something that I actually reflected on with one of my mentors actually just recently, which was that, you know, as your business grows, you have to grow as an individual as well. And that takes that kind of internal work to figure out, okay, you might go from being a solopreneur, then you start hiring people, and then all of a sudden you're a leader, and you've got to develop different types of skills.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden we have a pandemic, right? And then you've got to become super digital, and then we come into a new normal. So you've got to get really close to the people you work with to find out what they need.
Yeah.
Then we have an economic downturn, and so you've got to figure out different ways to kind of, you know, position what the business does, and, you know, all the kind of cost benefit analysis and the cash flows and the spreadsheets and all of that. And as that grows, you've got to implement new processes and systems, and, you know, you've got to deal with team dynamics. And so for me, it was about being mindful of what was, and Jeff Bezos calls this looking around the corner. You know, he encourages his leadership team to think about what's around the corner and anticipate that. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, you can maybe put some training in place, get some additional support. And so that's what I've had to do. I've had to deliberately anticipate what's around the corner and just keep learning about ways in which to, you know, address those new steps in the journey, so that I can do the best for my team, my business, and ultimately the young people that we serve.
So what for you is around the corner? What are you anticipating? What is the next challenge that you face, or the next opportunity?
Yeah, great question. And I guess what every entrepreneur, I suppose, wants to discover is whether or not their idea works, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got an idea for something, and, you know, you might think it works, your mum might think it works, your partner might think it works, but does the stranger in the street, you know, do they see value in it?
Yeah.
And we nailed that quite early on in our journey, because of all of the changes in the world that evolved and morphed a little bit. But now that we've got that, it's about how can we scale that?
Okay.
And how can we get that to more people? So we know that we have a model which can introduce entrepreneurship to kids and young people in an engaging way. And we know that it can have a meaningful impact on their lives. Yeah. So now the challenge is, how do we get that to more young people?
Get it out there, yeah.
How do we get it out there? How do we scale? And, you know, often that requires bringing, you know, new skill sets onto the team, looking outside of your immediate network, perhaps, for the types of advice that you need, and almost kind of trying to think differently. Because I guess what gets you to, or what's gotten me to this point, the skill sets, the networks, the experiences, I can't assume that that package will get me to the next point, right?
Yeah.
And that requires me to come out of my comfort zone and, you know, do all the things that we talk about, but it's still quite difficult. And so that's where I am at the moment, is thinking essentially, how do we become going from local to regional to national? And who do I need to bring on board? What does that look like? And a lot of that is to do with positioning, branding, you know, getting, you know, other influencers and thought leaders in the space to kind of buy into what we're doing, so that there's some influence. So all of that is kind of, you know, that whole big thinking strategic piece, getting that in place, having a plan that I can articulate to someone that would have an impact on the business that could believe in that plan.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's great. You've got a great base to go from by the sounds of it, though. So good luck with that.
Thank you.
So just thinking about today's world and either the you know, the area that you're working in at the moment, or business in general, what's most inspiring to you at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, so from two aspects, the kids and young people that we work with, I mean, they've really inspired us, because I guess, you know, we're not selling widgets, you know, we are impacting lives, and seeing the changes in those lives keeps us going, you know, and keeps us motivated as a team. And the feedback we get from the parents about how it's impacted not just the child, but their families, and the feedback we get from schools and teachers who tell us how the educational attainment of those students that we've worked with has increased, that really keeps us motivated and thinking about how we can just do more, how we can evolve what we're doing. And often that those ideas are inspired by the young people that we're working with. On the other side, though, in terms of just business as it is, you know, I'm really inspired by a lot of the kind of music moguls who have become businesses in themselves. So, you know, people like Jay-Z and P. Diddy and 50 Cent, you know, they started out as these kind of rappers who have become these business moguls with these empires around them, who have been huge. And, you know, that journey has been really interesting to watch, and seeing that evolution has been something which, you know, I guess the world didn't anticipate, but it's quite real. And they are, you know, meaningful business people in their own right. So that's also pretty inspiring.
Really inspiring, thank you. So just looking to the future now, what do you see as your main challenge? I know you talked about getting the word out there and growing the business. What else is the challenge that you're facing at the moment?
So I guess we want to make ourselves more resilient. So if you think of us as maybe a bit of a speedboat, we need to kind of get out of the speedboat and maybe go into not quite, you know, an oil tanker, right?
Okay.
But
I don't know if you were going to go yacht, or you were going to go with that.
I think it's going to be speedboat yacht, right? And I guess because there's so much, you know, there's been so much kind of financial ups and downs.
Yeah.
You know, I was mentioning to one of our advisors the other day that we just want to build a really strong financial base for the company, so that, you know, we can not have to worry so much about day-to-day revenue. We can build up our reserves, and that will give us the opportunity, the capacity to start developing out the culture of our business, which is really important. Spend more time thinking about what the strategy is to go regional and national. So what we need to do is to think more broadly about the types of individuals and skills we need to put in place in order to take the business to the next level. And so we need to create a kind of a really strong pool of reserves that will give us the time and space to start thinking about that more broadly. You know, we want to put a more defined culture in place in the business, and just think about what scaffolding do we need to set as a baseline so that we can start building.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So final question, and it's probably quite apt. What would you recommend to a young person starting their first business in today's world?
Yeah, great question, Nicola. And I think because there is so much information out there, there's a plus to that, right? You can, use Google and YouTube, and you can go into the social networks. The trouble with that, though, is that it can take some filtering, and you're not sure whether or not the context is right for you. You're not sure if the experience matches yours. You're not sure if they're just trying to sell you something. So it's difficult to navigate all of that. The way in which my kind of antidote to that is by saying that if you are a young entrepreneur, you're 18 years old and you've got an idea for something, is to go and get a mentor, go and get someone who has done this before to help you along the way. Because we all know in business that actually it's probably necessary for you to make mistakes, but a mentor can just help you make less mistakes, maybe.
Or learn from them and take the learnings.
And you can take the learning from them as well. So it'll just help you to inform the journey so that when things do come up, they'll be expected, and you'll be a bit more prepared than you would have done if you were just working it out for yourself. Working it out for yourself has worked for lots of people, but I think we now know that instead of it taking 6 years, maybe it can take 6 months, right?
Speed up the process, 100%. Yeah.
You speed up the process. And I think for me, that's what a young entrepreneur, and you don't need just one mentor. You can get, a couple of mentors who have got different optics on things.
Yeah.
But I think getting people who have done it before in your specific industry, someone that you can just touch base with on a regular basis, is massively valuable.
Great advice. Well, that's it for today. Thank you so much. That was really insightful. And I'm really looking forward to sort of watch the progress, because I know that you're going out for some crowdfunding, aren't you, at the moment?
We are. Right? So in the month of September, we've got another week left. We are raising some crowdfunding, sponsorship through a crowdfunding campaign, through an initiative with British Airways, to run an 8-week boot camp for 100 kids and to run our 9th Kids Business Fair at Wembley Stadium. We were quite fortunate in that we hit our target of 50K in half the time, in about 2 weeks. And we've still got another week to get in as much match funding as we can. So we're really excited about it.
Brilliant. Okay, well, let's look forward to watching the progress. Thanks very much for taking the time today.
Thank you, Nicola. Thanks for having me.